So I'm sure everyone in the room thinks about how to lead with ease and purpose in this evolving world. Well, we have an expert with us today, one that we have heard from a couple of times during the conference. She's a really neat lady, and she's going to share some more of her expertise with us. Lisa Anna Palmer, founder and CEO of Light Your Leadership, Inc., is going to shed light on the subject and share her views on the topic, Leadership with a Post-Pandemic World, How to Elevate and Scale with Purpose. Let's once again welcome Lisa Anna to the stage. Woo! As she gets mic'd up. And as you can see, we coordinated our outfits, she and I. I told her she's been on the stage so many times, she might as well co-host with me. But she really knows her stuff on the topic of leadership. And we all basically are leaders, regardless of what your chosen field is. Even if you think, like some people have said, oh, I just like to stand in the back and, not call attention to myself. Even in that role, you're still a leader. So Lisa Ann will give us new perspectives on that. Take it away, Lisa Anna.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure and honor to be here with the people in attendance and also the people tuning in. I try to talk about leadership and the importance of leadership any chance I get. Why? Because our lives depend on it. Yesterday I talked about how our number one risk is people risk. And if we want to mitigate that risk, a great way to do it is to bring in leadership that is compassionate, courageous, competent. So today, in the next 22 minutes or so, I'm going to share with you approaches that can help in elevating and scaling your leadership. So imagine for a moment what life would be like if when you asked your loved ones, people you know, people in your community, tell me about your work. And that they would respond, they'd be all lit up. And that this wouldn't be an exception. This would be something very common. What happens instead? People will share about how they're being treated at work, that they're struggling, especially after the pandemic, right? There's so much that's happened. Wouldn't it be nice instead to see people who are lit up about their work, who are talking about their leadership as though they care about them, instead of what I often see when I do workplace assessments, and you might hear people say, you know what, my manager didn't even say hello to me today in the hallway. They think I'm a number. They don't care. At the same time, I go and ask the manager, and they're like, oh my gosh, I do care. I just wasn't paying attention. I was thinking about the meeting and all this and that and the other. So I want to talk about leadership at all levels, all backgrounds, all ages, because leadership is a way of being. Too often we confuse it with management. Management is about processes and making sure things are well organized and that things are running smoothly from the perspective of budgets and the operations of the work. But who's operating that? It's people, and people don't want to be managed. There's way too many people trying to manage others, and that's why we're having the issues we have in terms of engagement. World engagement levels are at 23%, according to Gallup. Do the math, right? There are a lot of people who are not happy at work, and I truly believe that if we take and seize this opportunity following the pandemic, and that's why I call it post-pandemic world, to reinvent the way we work, to start fresh, to kind of leave the things that don't work well anymore in the past, and to start bringing in new ways of leading. So my why. Why am I doing this work? Well, I've been working in HR and organizational development as well as leadership for over 30 years. And I found too many people are suffering due to work-related issues. Because, like it or not, it's very difficult to compartmentalize. What happens to you at work affects you at home. What happens to you at home affects you at work. And I include myself in this. I burnt out 3 times by the age of 38. The last time I thought I was going to die, they had to take me to the hospital in an ambulance. My stomach had seized up. It felt like a bag of rocks. And I couldn't eat or drink for 2-3 weeks. And then I was sustaining on baby food after that for a while. That is the impact of poor leadership. My managers, and also my own. I was not being a good self-leader. I needed to learn to set healthy boundaries and to stand up for myself. Instead, I was saying yes to everything. And at the same time, it was actually the vice president didn't even notice what was going on in my life, and I had a small toddler at home. Had he been tuned into me and my needs, he would have noticed. He said, "Whoa, hang on, Lisa, slow down." Right? And that's what's happening to talent all over the world, especially here in North America. Right? We have this mentality, is like, work, work, work. Well, we're not robots. So we need to keep that in mind when we talk about leadership. So, and the thing is, I don't wish this on anyone else. All that suffering, and unfortunately it happens. So this is why I see the need to be able to help people see that there's a better way. And I do have a strong belief that we can elevate humanity by elevating our leadership. And that's why I do what I do. I need to get the word out there. I do it through keynotes, coaching, training, and many other ways. So again, coming back, I'm not going to belabor this point, but there's a big difference between management and leadership. And if you're not clear on that yet, you want to make that part of your learning, part of your development. So the way I look at leadership now is that it's about unleashing forces for good. Everybody's always asking me, what's your definition of leadership? I used to, when I wrote my book, Light a Fire in Their Hearts, The Truth About Leadership, I did so much research on it to come up with a definition. Well, I found that there are actually, based on studies, over 90 factors used to define leadership. What that told me is, at the end of the day, we each need to think about, what does leadership mean to me? Each one of us needs to go through that process of self-reflection. And what I've come up with right now, because it might change or evolve, is that it's unleashing forces for good in myself and in others, at home, at work, in the community, in society, and globally, depending on what you're called to do. Right? We each have a calling, and we can each decide at what level do I want to have an impact. So workplace is a bit of a show right now. Just a few frightening stats. Global workforce is stressed, sad, and anxious. Quote, that's from the Harvard Business Review. What else? 44% reported feeling a lot of stress. 44 to 47% lawyers are reporting burnout. These are frightening stats. The old way of leading is not working. There was the Great Resignation. I'm sure you all heard about it, where 50 million people, quit their jobs because they had time to reflect. Is this what I want to keep doing in my life? Is this how I want to keep feeling while I'm giving my talents? Then there are, of course, layoffs, quiet quitting, etc. And 57% of workers feel disrespected. Leading is tough, right? My heart goes out to managers and leaders, especially middle managers, because they're in the pressure cooker. And what happens is, particularly in professions like law, engineering, sciences, all people I've worked with, is that you spend a large part of your career developing your craft, your profession. You get so good at it. So good. And the best ones get promoted into management roles. It's like, surprise, you're really good at this. You're used to excelling. Now you're in charge of a team. Have fun. And of course, being a high performer, how do you feel when somebody's not performing the way you think they should feel or the way you think they should perform? frustration sets in, right? I see a lot of nodding heads. Well, it happens in every profession, even in sales, because you're used to being a top performer. So you want to deliver those results. Management's pushing you. It's like, come on, where's that brief? Where's that file? And you're waiting for Joe and Jane to like, come on, why aren't you just doing your work? Right? And so what does that lead to? Jane and Joanne feel like, oh my gosh, I feel pressured. I don't know how to do the work because my leader's not necessarily communicating with me or training me properly. And it's a big cycle of people who are not well equipped to carry out their jobs. So my whole philosophy is, let's start leadership development early, and then people can decide whether or not formal leadership or leadership in positions like management or council or general counsel or whatnot are really for them. And if they are, great. Continue the learning because it's lifelong. And if not, being an expert is good too. So keep this in mind. Soft skills are the hardest to learn and to implement. That's why everybody avoids them. And that's the truth. Nowadays, we have the great abdication because leadership is so tough. Underdeveloped leadership, and there's a low desire to lead. So this is really interesting because you assume that people, as they're progressing their careers, that they want to advance. Well, guess what? 66% of employees don't want to lead. Isn't that interesting? That's very telling. Why is that? 70% are saying no to promotions. This is mind-blowing. When I read this, I said, no way. Well, that's what's happening right now in this post-pandemic world. And 60% of employees are saying that leaders damage their self-esteem. So part of that journey is understanding how much power you hold as soon as you get that promotion. And then the journey that you need to take to learn to become a leader who is able to inspire and engage others. And it is a journey. So I'm not going to depress you with more stats, but just know it's not looking good, right? So instead, let's look at the great news, right? We went in the murk, in the muddy waters. Now let's bring ourselves back up. We can do something about it. It's called vertical development. So vertical development is a way of developing our leadership, which is from the inside out. Normally, if you take a phone, for example, you start adding apps to it, right? So that's horizontal leadership development. So you learn communication skills, you go and weekend workshop, learn how to do performance management, maybe you go learn to do strategy or whatnot. All those things are very important. And they don't work properly unless you have that solid foundation where you're doing your vertical development, which is, if you think about the phone analogy, it's like totally changing the operating system. So you're working on mindset. You're working on how to follow your intuition, how to tap in to your humanity, basically. And it's about widening our window of tolerance. Because what happens when we're not tolerating things very well? We don't self-regulate, we start to react. If you start hearing, oh, knee-jerk reaction, or somebody blew their top, well, chances are that they need to grow their window of tolerance. Open hearts and shift towards, a growth mindset, a success mindset, and it's a great opportunity to improve. Only 1% of leadership development programs offer focus on vertical development. Okay, so it's all about how we show up and respond, right? We can't control what goes on outside of us. Who could have foreseen the pandemic or now some of the wildfires? All kinds of things are going on around us. However, one thing that we can control is how we react. And that's leadership. How do we create that space between when something happens to me and then I react? Or an employee is not delivering and I start to get upset. Do I react right away? A good leader will not. They'll stop, They'll breathe, take their time, create that space, think about how to handle the situation in the best way possible so everybody maintains their dignity, even if it's a difficult conversation. So leaders, there's parts missing, but I'll read it to you. Leaders will ultimately succeed or fail based on their ability to effectively navigate their most important, complex, and relational situations. It's all about relationships, how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to the people we work with, how we relate to our work. These are the hardest situations leaders regularly encounter. So that's leadership, is building up that solid foundation so you can handle all kinds of situations. Start with building a solid foundation. So I've developed the Elevate and Scale Your Leadership program to work on those vertical development skills, which really, it's about leading from the inside out. So aligning your brain, your mindset, the way you think, with your heart. A lot of new leadership gurus, or ones who've been around actually for the last 30 years, are talking about we need to demonstrate love for our work, love for our people, love for humanity. And align the heart, the mind, and in case you haven't realized that, that's like your gut. Okay? That's your intuition. Just trust your gut. So here are the 3 C's of connection. Okay? These are part of the approach that's covered in Light a Fire in Their Hearts, The Truth About Leadership. And I'm going to go through some of these quickly, so you can take pictures if you like. You can copy this if you want. Okay? Compassion. Courage. Got to build up that fortitude, okay, to make tough decisions, to show up, to set boundaries, to stand up for your team when management's trying to drive work that's unreasonable. And then competence, lifelong leadership learning. Here are the 8 P's of ignition, right? How do you ignite that engagement? How do you light a fire in their hearts? Well, through profundity, which means the self-reflection that's required to go in deep and figure out what are your passions? What is your purpose? Yours and that of the people on your team. Perseverance, right? Grit, #1 sign of success, especially in entrepreneurs. Professionalism, but not the type of professionalism that turns you into a robot. No. The type of professionalism where you are creating inclusive environments where everybody feels like they can be the best version of themselves. And you're treating them with civility and dignity. And then play. Fun is fuel. Write that down. I've been to a lot of places where fun forgot. And I'm not talking about necessarily having to have contrived fun, although that's fun too sometimes, where you're having to, set up special events and things like that, for sure. But try to find the fun in the work. Know what the people you work with like and enjoy and are passionate about, and try to see if you can structure something where there's more of that in their work. So play is important, connects people. Philanthropy. Today in a panel we talked about corporate social responsibility. Philanthropy is a great way to ignite engagement, to light up not only your heart, the people on your team. They also will respond well to philanthropy, doing things that matter. And then prosperity. Don't keep it all for yourself. Share it. And by prosperity, I don't just mean financial. Share the light. Share the recognition. Share the bounty of your work that you created together. In addition to that, here are the 7 steps to elevate and scale with purpose. So this I designed especially for after the pandemic. So #1, put people and planet first. So when you're making decisions and people say, well, what about the shareholder? The shareholder's happy when your people are happy because they're going to do better. And in fact, there's so much research out there that supports that. Same thing with understanding the struggle. It's not business as usual. Don't try to deny people what they're experiencing. It's hard. You need to renew your culture. Things that worked in the past don't work anymore. need to create psychologically safe spaces, and also think about physical security. People are more polarized now. They tend to have more physical conflicts at work. Think about the office setup and the technology. What's the best model for your organization? Don't try to copy everybody else. Take that as best practices and then do a feasibility and see what works best for you, and then equip your employees to be able to succeed within that context. Make sure you drive home the idea of service-minded leadership. So you be the role model as a leader, you be the role model, and then make sure that you're holding people accountable to be of service to their colleagues, to the clients, to the community. Service-minded leadership. And finally, elevating and trusting others with leadership as well. Because leaders grow leaders. That's our number one job. How do you implement that? Start with the scale approach. So remember, elevate and scale. Number one, self-awareness through profundity. Do the thinking, the reflection. We often skip over that. Connection and courage through compassion, right? Through compassion and empathy. Compassion is really empathy plus a desire to help. It's very active in nature. Accountability through caring and appreciation. Oftentimes accountability is viewed as something like, it's punishing. No. If you do it from the perspective that you want to help people grow, and you do it through caring and appreciation, accountability becomes much more meaningful, and people react much better to it. Legacy and lifelong learning, that stands on its own. You want to leave, this planet, even your workplace, better than when you first got there. And that's done by continuing to learn, to grow, and helping those on your team to do so too. And finally, there's elevating and trusting others, as mentioned earlier. Super important. So learning how to mentor, learning how to create opportunities for people to grow, taking your ego out of it. You know what? One of my favorite bosses said, I only hire people who are smarter than me. So think about that. Share that platform. Help others shine. Use the scale approach. So I've developed a 3-tier program. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but if you're interested, please connect with me on LinkedIn. It's 3 tiers. Tier 1 is for sparks, people just starting out, emerging leaders. Tier 2 is for people who are managers, directors, vice presidents. And Tier 3 are top leaders who not only want to have a huge impact in their organization, but also outside of it in the community globally as well. So ultimately, trust yourself. You can do this as a leader at any level, at any age, any background. Go within, find your truth. Shine a light in this world. We need it now more than ever. And learn to love your life as a leader. Because when you love your life as a leader, guess what happens? Not only does it benefit you, it benefits everyone around you. So if you want to chat, connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to have you do that and ask for a strategy session. And that's it. Everyone, thank you very much. Together we can make the world a better workplace.